Still with me, criminal defense attorneys Rachel Kugel and Francis Johnson. Rachel, I'll start with you. This is such a fascinating case because was it self-defense? Was it not? There seems to me facts that are good for both sides here, Rachel.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. It is a good one, and I think it comes down to, the prosecution wanting to sort of slow down the events to explain to the jury that there was this moment of retreat, and at that point, as he said in his opening statements, there was a shift, right, between self-defense and murder. But I think what the defense wants to do is speed it up and try and show the jury what this was like in real life, in real time, that there weren't lots of moments to reflect, that this all happened, very fast, that it was chaotic, that it was hot, that it was, angry. And I think, they certainly have, the defense certainly has evidence, ample evidence, that these guys were coming over, without good intentions. I think that's clear. Whatever they say, I think ultimately we know that's without good intentions. The question is, does that moment of retreat, end the case, or is the defense able to create in the jury's mind this sense of panic and urgency and chaos, that it's hard to sort of know what it's like unless you're really in it, right?
And that's right, and I think that's why the defendant's testimony is also so important here after hearing from those others involved in the prosecution's case. And Francis, I think that's a good issue. The initial aggressors are obvious here, but does this case really hinge on the technicalities of the law and when maybe the retreat happened, when it was reinitiated, and just breaking down step by step the elements of self-defense here?
Not in my opinion. That is all true. That is all the law. But I find that in these self-defense, stand your ground cases, that it really comes down to the jurors' perceptions of the worthiness of the defendant to be able to defend their life, which is why when African Americans use stand your ground, they're 250% less likely than a white defendant using stand your ground to prevail on it. So I'm not shocked that he lost. Even when 4 people show up at your house and they intend to do you harm and do, in fact, engage in violence with you, and to suggest that they were not a danger because they were driving away is to suggest that there's not a such thing as a drive-by shooting. And the fact that a slug can travel 800 yards, that a centerfire shot can travel several miles, that his danger was over. It certainly was not. I hope that the defense comes out aggressive in this matter, and that the defendant testifies about the real danger he felt that night.
Yeah, I can imagine that it will. And just like you said, the dynamics of this crime scene, in a vehicle is a deadly weapon too, right? You can easily turn that car around and come right back at you. So I imagine they're going to argue that as well. And you mentioned these immunity hearings, Rachel. It's very rare in, my experience, working here for almost 5 years. We've been covering self-defense cases that a judge would even grant that at that level. They usually just kind of send it to a jury, but kind of like almost a directed verdict motion. You just want to, light most favorable. We're just going to let the jury take it and handle it. And it's a Florida jury, right, Rachel? And they usually do stand their ground, right?
I think that who the jury is an important piece here, and hopefully they picked a good one that's a real representation of his peers. But I think you're right. Judges always tend to want, if it's at all possible, to let the facts go to a jury and to let a jury decide. And remember, just because he didn't have stand your ground immunity doesn't mean that self-defense is not still in play here. It absolutely is. Immunity means he couldn't have been, essentially charged at all. That's different than using self-defense as a defense now, and he still very much has that in play, and this case is one of those cases that's very much anybody's game.
Yeah, and we shall see if the prosecution rests later today. We may start hearing from him. If not, tomorrow we'll keep our viewers up to date on that. Thank you both for your insights on that matter. When we come back, we're going to turn